Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Welcome to my show if you are listening on the podcast. I'm Rachel Lang. I am a professional astrologer, and I am so glad you're here because if you're here, that means you are committed to learning about yourself, learning about others, and to being a better person, to living into your true potential. And today's episode is a series that we're doing that is covering all the different rising signs, going in depth, looking at the different houses in your chart, looking at what your governing planet means for you. And if you missed the overview of rising signs and the ascendant, go back and check out the first video in the series. We did Aries last week. This week we are doing Taurus. Don't forget to send this to a friend, especially if you have a loved one who is trying to make sense of what their Taurus rising means. The rising sign colors your experience of the world. It shapes your worldview, and it's like your personal horizon line. And so things like our physical appearance, the characteristics and mannerisms of our personality all fall under the rising signs, different traits and characteristics. And we break those down by looking at what is the sign in general, what is the planet that governs that sign, and then where is that planet in your chart, and what aspects and what relationships does it have with other points in your chart. All of that gives us a picture of how you express yourself in the world. And so the rising sign is a really important part of our chart. It's like the framework for the rest of our lives. It's like the front door of your home. And when you understand your rising sign's potentials, its challenges, then you can show up in the world in the most authentic way possible. And so that's what today we're going to do. Now, if you are a Taurus rising, you're in good company. I have a Taurus rising too. And I want to tell you how Taurus rising I am. So I learned astrology back before computer programs were accessible. And so I did all of the math by hand. Now, I was not the best mathematics student in school. If I had known that all I was going to do is math, because that's a lot of what it means to be an astrologer, is doing a lot of math. If I would have known that, I would have studied a lot harder, but I didn't know that at the time. I was not very good in math, and I made a little calculation error, and I thought I had a Gemini rising for a really long time, for a couple of years, in fact. And then I had a professional consultation with an actual working professional. Keep in mind, I was a college student. I was not a professional. And he told me I have a Taurus rising. And I stood like this and I said, absolutely not. I do not have a Taurus rising. I don't have a Taurus rising. I have a Gemini rising. Can't you see how curious I am? Can't you see how I'm always moving? And I fought him on it. I said, I don't have a Taurus rising. And he said, look at how you're standing right now. And look at how stubborn you're being about the mathematics of this. He said, you have a Taurus rising. And so slowly over time, I started to accept it. And now I love my Taurus rising. I also have a Gemini moon, and often we are more connected to our moons early in life, and we feel that part of ourselves more than we feel the rising sign. I offer that because it's an indicator of when we make up our minds about something, we don't want to budge. Might take us a while to get there, but when we do, oh, forget it. We can be so fixed sign about it. And if you're watching and you're a Taurus rising, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If I go into a store and I say, I want this, I am going to comb through every aisle until I find it. And I'm not going to be okay if it's not there. I came in for a frame. I want the frame to look exactly like this, and I'm going to find it. And a lot of times it comes through. And so I hope you, as an ally, as a fellow Taurus rising, can appreciate what I'm talking about. In this video, we're going to talk about the different characteristics that you embody, including some of those physical characteristics, because our rising sign tells us a lot about how we look. We're also going to talk about each house in your chart. And if you use quadrant house systems and you have different signs on the different cusps, keep that in mind when we're talking about that. But this is just a general idea. Obviously, your chart is going to be unique to you and is going to tell you slightly nuanced aspects of your personality. Taurus Rising's deep desire is to feel grounded and stable in the world. So security, consistency, a sense of being rooted, that's what makes you feel safe. And with Taurus on your ascendant, home is so important to you. It's your sanctuary. And material stability isn't just about money and success. It's actually about feeling connected to the earth, to life itself. Because the Taurus Rising comes into this life with a purpose to feel all of the physical sensations, the best aspects of what it means to live in a body. We are sensually oriented. And even if we don't feel exactly grounded on the inside, to the outside world and to the people who we interact with on a daily basis, we appear to be calm, steady, the rock. We appear like that bull, which is Taurus's symbol, in the field, waving its tail back and forth, looking out at the wildflowers, unmovable, unwavering. And that's the image that we project into the world, even if it's not how we feel on the inside. Taurus is governed by Venus, and Venus is the planet of love, beauty, harmony, and pleasure. So if you're a Taurus rising, Venus colors the way that you experience the world. So you're naturally drawn to things that delight the senses. Beautiful spaces, good food, art, music, physical touch, things that feel good, affection. Venus gives Taurus rising a graceful and charming demeanor. And you might have this artistic desire to create beauty all around you, whether through cooking a delicious meal, through designing your home, through gardening, through making art. Taurus risings also have beautiful voices, whether it's speaking, singing, acting, or storytelling. Taurus rules the throat. There's this desire for us to build something lasting, create a legacy through the way that we add beauty into the world and the way that we express ourselves creatively and artistically. One of Taurus Rising's greatest strengths is endurance. You are steady. You know how to get things done. But here can be the challenge. Taurus is a fixed sign, and that means that you don't always like change. If you have a child or a partner with a Taurus rising, and you want them to do something, plant the seed. Say, it would be really great if that door were fixed or that room were cleaned. And then you back up, you walk away, you go and turn your head and do something completely different and you forget about it. Over time, the Taurus rising is going to accomplish whatever it is that you planted as a seed in their awareness. But they have to come to it to their own terms. And part of that is because we take a little bit of time to adjust to new ideas. The rising sign represents that interface that we have with the world. And if we feel imposed upon or restricted, or we feel like someone is obligating us to do something, then it takes the joy out of it. Remember, Venus loves pleasure. So when it feels right to us, and when everything inside of us is ready to interface with that activity, then we will joyfully. But if it comes with any kind of negative energy, we can be very sensitive to that. There's one other challenge I wanted to mention, and that is that Venus relates to pleasure. And we as Taurus risings are made to be in a body and to enjoy being in a body, all of those sensual experiences. And so there can be a tendency to crave sweets, to want to indulge, and it's really important for us to exercise, to get physical movement so that we can maintain our strong, steady, healthy life experience, because strength is something that is inherent with our signs. And I remember being a child and going to pizza parties with classmates, and I could eat more than anybody at the table. Even the boys were like, "I can't believe you're having a third piece." And I'm also really strong. I've always been just really strong. I grew up the oldest of five, carrying heavy things and helping my mom and picking up kids and so we can gain muscles really easily. But Taurus risings, unlike Aries risings, Gemini risings, and Virgo risings, which tend to be a little bit more chiseled and they have more definition around their muscles, Taurus risings, we aren't made to have that kind of definition. Yes, we can achieve it. We can work out really hard. We can do all the things, go on keto. We can do all the things that would lead us to having those kinds of chiseled abs and really defined muscles. But Venus is the planet that relates to the fleshy skin part of our bodies. One thing that always used to frustrate me when I was younger is that Venus is the planet that relates to flesh, and specifically some of the flesh that makes us more soft, more like a Renaissance painting. We actually look better with a little softness. Working with the natural rhythms of our bodies can be a lot easier than resisting them or fighting them. But we do tend to be stronger than the average person. There are a few other physical traits that I want to talk about. Taurus risings, there are often earthy, striking qualities to the way we look. The eyes are going to be prominent and they might even be rounded, and there's like a magnetic quality to them. The neck also stands out, either because it's really graceful or it's really thick and stocky. Shoulders tend to be broad. The hair often has a wave to it, and the skin might also have a warm olive tone. There's a striking, magnetic, memorable presence. Venus gives us something distinct. And there's also the power of the voice. So Taurus rules the throat. And so Taurus rising often has a natural gift for communication, singing, speaking, languages, orations. And Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., for example, Angela Davis, Liza Minnelli, these are all powerful Taurus rising voices. And for us, voice isn't just how we communicate. It can actually be a source of income and the way that we achieve success. That leads us into money and security. So Taurus risings have Mercury as the governing planet of the second house of finances. So Gemini is going to be on that cusp. And that tells us a lot about how we make money, how we like to spend money, and our values around money. So Taurus risings tend to be better at building wealth over time. We might have multiple streams of income from speaking, writing, podcasting. Anything connected to the voice or communication can be very lucrative for us. Money isn't just about wealth for us. It's about stability. It's about feeling grounded, knowing we're safe. And it's about ultimately, we're going to talk about the Aquarius midheaven in just a few minutes, but ultimately, money and success relate to the legacy that we want to lead. They relate to the humanitarian drives that are so much a part of that rising sign. Gemini is a dualistic sign, and so we often have two streams of income happening at any time, and we can be restless in that, not really satisfied with one stream of income, looking for a way to have another. So we created the side hustle. And so for us, having a side hustle is just a part of who we are. Now let's talk about the third house, which is governed by Cancer and the moon. The third house relates to how we think and learn. It relates to our early education experience, our relationship with our siblings. It also relates to the way that we market ourselves or what we teach, what we want to learn, our interests. For Taurus rising, your words carry a lot of emotion. You are naturally a teacher, a motivational speaker. You have the ability to get to people's hearts. And so there's a real strong urge for creative expression, for writing poetry, for speaking. And you'll see politicians who have Taurus risings have a natural gift at this. They're able to go into a crowd and get everyone warmed up. We form emotional community ties, relationships with our siblings where there's a lot of sensitivities. And that can be good for fostering strong connections. But it can also be challenging if there are relationships with siblings or with neighbors that have been more challenging, where you don't get along or you don't see eye to eye. You put your heart into those relationships. Your fourth house, which is the house that relates to your home, your family, your rootedness to a place, real estate. The fourth house is governed by Leo and the sun. And so think about the condition of your sun. Is your sun exalted? Is in its detriment? Is it in any challenging aspects with other planets? That's going to tell you a lot about your relationship with your family and about the nature of your home. Your home is your pride. It's your joy. It's where you express your creativity. Your home is a sanctuary for your creative expression. There's also a real desire for it to be beautiful and to express the true nature of who you are. Also, there can be this tendency to want to create space in your home, to have it spread out. And space is going to give you that sense of security that you crave. Leo on that cusp also suggests that that your parents shaped who you are and how you express yourself in the world. Because the fourth house represents your family and the sun governs Leo, the sun is often associated with our father. And so there is this sense that the father has a real strong influence in your life on helping you to express yourself in the way that you are going to out in the world. And there might even be a real strong sense of connection with your father's lineage. And I understand that families take on all kinds of looks and experiences. Even if your father wasn't with you or wasn't in the home, there is perhaps this longing to be connected to that pervades everything else in your life and how you organize your sense of family moving forward. The fifth house is the house that's related to romance and your courtship, so dating relationships. It also relates to speculation, gambling. It relates to all the fun things in life: romance, creative expression, children, play. And your fifth house is going to be governed by Mercury. Virgo is going to be the sign on that cusp. And so for you, creativity is practical. It is thoughtful. You probably prepare and research anything that you're bringing out into the world in a creative way well before you release it. And so this also gives you the ability to fine-tune a craft, to get invested in art or some kind of artistic expression and really develop that skill over time. Or you might feel like you want to take a calculated risk, gambling, speculation, depending on the quality of your Mercury and what house it's in. That is going to determine how comfortable you are with taking that risk. One of the challenges with a Taurus rising is that we have this real strong need for stability and a desire to create stable structures. And so we have that contrast, but we're not going to be inclined to make unconscious, risky moves. Anything that we do that requires us to take a risk is going to be thought out. Virgo is analytical. It's also a deeply curating sign. So we're able to separate the wheat from the chaff, so to speak, when it comes to our own creative ideas, to say that's going to be good, that's not. The sixth house is the house that relates to our work. And it's not necessarily the career or the dream that we have. It's more of what do we do on an everyday basis to serve and make a contribution. That's the sixth house. The sixth house is also our health and our well-being, and it's how we balance that work and life and self-care, all of those things. Our sixth house is going to be governed by Libra, and Venus is the planet associated with that. So all of our work is going to have beauty. Artistic careers are really favorable for us because we can dedicate hours and hours and hours to something that involves using our creativity, creating a craft. Anything that is artistic is going to be something that is a really positive experience for us. Our work also is so important for it to be harmonious. There's a need for there to be cooperation, teamwork. We want to get along with people. And we ultimately want to feel like we're doing something that beautifies the world, that makes the world better. Because Libra is on that cusp, we have to be really careful about food and sweets in particular. Our kidneys are going to be sensitive, our thyroids are going to be sensitive. And so we don't want to get into any kind of insulin resistance patterns or create extra stress on our kidneys or extra stress on our endocrine systems. And so exercise, again, really important. We have to discipline ourselves and make it happen. And also to be extra mindful about the way that we're eating and to use discipline in that area of our lives. Now let's talk about the seventh house, which are our partnerships. This is the house of marriage, but it's also the house that relates to our enemies, our adversaries. Now, Scorpio is an intense sign, and we can attract very intense, magnetic, transformative, and charismatic people into our lives. But we have to be careful that we don't get into power struggles. Scorpio is governed by Mars in traditional rulership and Pluto in modern astrology. And so Pluto is the planet that relates to the deep psychological underpinnings of things. It's the planet that relates to going deep, going fast. And so we can approach our relationships in that way. But it's important for us to slow things down so that we don't create any dynamics that we can't get out of when we're 2 years into a relationship and it's wow, we're still having this intensity. It's hard to keep that up when we're a rising sign that orients ourselves to being balanced and being grounded. There's a possibility that you could attract someone who is very influential, who is someone who's a powerhouse, and that being a power couple is something that you're really interested in leaning into. You want to create stability, security. You want to create a sense of we're doing meaningful things together. And so that lends itself to being in a relationship that sticks, that stays committed. So Taurus is a fixed sign. Your descendant marriage cusp is a fixed sign, Scorpio. And so there's staying power there for you in your relationships. The eighth house is the house that we associate with other people's resources, other people's money. It's the house of your shared resources, inheritance, taxes, debt, but it's also the house that relates to your ability to receive. And it relates to things like occult sciences and depth psychology. It's the hidden and unconscious parts of ourselves that are represented there. It's a house of rebirth. Sagittarius is on the cusp of that house, and so Jupiter is the governing planet of that area of your life. And so this gives you a natural optimism when it comes to abundance, when it comes to building wealth, and you might not have any evidence for it in your bank account early in your life, but it's something that you know that people are going to come through for you. There's a sense that you can build it, that you can make wise decisions. And even if your Jupiter is in a challenging aspect relationship, that optimism still stays. And it might even just be a real subtle voice in the back of your mind. This also makes you very generous and wanting to give to others, wanting to dedicate yourself to making people's lives better. But it's really important that you don't overextend yourself financially, that you don't go into a large amount of debt, because Jupiter, while on the one hand, it's expansive and it's vibrant and it's optimistic and it's full of opportunity, it can also be full of indulgence. And it really needs to be grounded in real practical action steps in a dedicated, disciplined plan, or it can just stay in that dream state and not actually manifest in real life. The ninth house is the house that relates to your spirituality and religious ideas, religious practices. It relates to your higher education, how you experience travel, and especially travel to places that speak different languages, where it's far away from your home and you have to take a plane to get there. The ninth house also relates to things like legal affairs, astrology. It relates to publishing. And Capricorn is going to be on that cusp, which makes Saturn a very influential planet in that area of your life. And so all of these areas need to be approached with discipline. Yours is a spiritual path that wants a deep well of spiritual knowledge, not just to flit and explore all kinds of different things, but to really go deep with a practice. There can be this tie to tradition that you don't understand, even as you explore all kinds of new age ideas, or you really branch out of the religion you grew up with, there's still this feeling of home that you get when you're in a traditional faith environment, or you're practicing some of the spiritual traditions that you grew up with. Travel may come later in life, depending on where your Saturn is, or there might be resistance to travel or challenges with making time for travel. The logistics can feel too hard to where it gets overwhelming. And the key is just little bits at a time. Saturn's influence can slow things down in that area of our lives, but it also gives us the ability to finish a book for publishing, to get our PhD. Saturn is dedication. It is discipline. And that's the spirit we need to bring into all of those ninth house matters. The 10th house is the house that is like our crown chakra point. So it's the point that connects our spiritual drive and desire with how we live our public lives. It's our mission. Often it is associated with our career. It's how we're known and the public reputation that we have. The 10th house is governed by Aquarius, and Aquarius is the rebel. It's the visionary. It's the one who is pushing the envelope, breaking the box, all of those cliches you can think of. And so people often look to you or look to someone with a Taurus rising as the one who's holding a vision for the future, the one who is challenging the social norms and teaching people how to do things a different way. You can be ahead of your time, and this can be very frustrating. You can have a visionary career, something that is more unconventional, and your legacy that you lead is one of service. Aquarius is ultimately connected to groups, politics, large organizations, but there's a humanitarian drive with Aquarius, that it's not about the personal, it's really about the collective. And so that's what drives you, and that's what inspires you. And so you see people like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., for example, Robert Kennedy, people with the Taurus rising who are using their voice, that Cancer third house influence, their writing and speaking abilities, the Gemini on the second house, and their visionary gifts with the Aquarius midheaven. All of that combined lends itself to being a thought leader, to being someone who is, even just in day-to-day conversations or in your community, opening people's minds and getting people to think about things in a new way. One of the challenges with this, though, is that sometimes it can feel like a lot of responsibility. Like I have to do something to make the world better, to help my community. And so here is where we need to remember that keyword balance. The 11th house represents our friendships. It's our groups. It's that larger sense of community. It's also our relationship with technology and our ideas for the future. And Pisces is sitting right there on that cusp with Jupiter and Neptune, both as its associated planets. And so our friends and the groups that we belong to can have an idealistic, artistic, or spiritual perspective. There can be this sense that we're all dreaming together, we're brainstorming, we want to talk about things that are more esoteric and mystical. We want to talk about music and creativity. These are all things that are related to Pisces. But it's important for us to ground those conversations, ground the big dreams into reality. And our natal Jupiter and Neptune placements tell us a lot about how to do that. So look at the house that Jupiter's in, because Jupiter's the traditional governing planet for Pisces. Look at the house that that's in, and that'll tell you where you can find that grounding and the kinds of people who can help you to be grounded in those dreams. Also, using technology for the arts, for music, for theater, these can be real assets for you and just natural gifts for you in your chart. The 12th house is the house that relates to the bridge between the seen physical world and the unseen spiritual world, the invisible. And the 12th house also relates to what we keep hidden, what we don't show on the outside. And it also relates to the deep sense of spirituality and the connection to magic that we feel. Imagination, getting lost in a creative process. That's 12th house influence. The 12th house relates to things that we can't see. So adversaries who are hiding in the shadows. It relates to institutions. It relates to even like deep ancestral and karmic influences that we don't have conscious awareness of. So Aries is on the 12th house cusp, and that means that Mars is the planet that governs that area of our lives. Because of this, it can be more challenging for us to express anger. We can let it build up within us. It can be repressed. And so it's really important for us to have healthy ways of expressing our anger, creative ways of releasing it. If we don't find creative and healthy ways to express our anger, it can build up. And the 12th house is one of our health related houses. So built up anger, resentment can actually be counteractive to our vitality, which means that there can be a mind-body connection between the anger that we've let built up or the frustration or any of those Mars-related emotions and certain health challenges that express themselves. You also might discover that you have a real talent with working with metal. That can be a creative outlet that helps you to release some of that built up pressure. Welding, metal smithing, jewelry making, things like that can be hidden talents. The 12th house is things that we're not consciously aware of. And so that can be something that sort of emerges as you learn how to express your creativity and use it to get some of that anger out of your body. Mars is a very passionate sign. And so there can be a lot of mixed messages about sexuality, about how we express ourselves physically. And because Taurus rising is so sensual, some of those messages, especially if you grow up in a really religious upbringing, some of those messages can cause you some confusion about your sexuality, or guilt can creep up. And at the same time, there's a lot of passion there. And so that can be another thing that gets repressed and that needs to find healthy outlets. Sometimes that passion can express itself in spirituality or in creativity. Like you can use that eros to make something, to build something, whether it's building a life or it's building a piece of art. There is this insatiability that we have and that needs to find a way to express itself. Now we've gone through all the houses. You know about your rising sign in and out. And so, one thing I want to leave you with is that if you are a Taurus rising, your gift is steadiness. In a world that's always shifting, you are rooted. And so you carry the Venusian gift of making life not only survivable, but making it pleasurable. You create beauty, stability, security, and you leave something lasting for future generations. And yes, sometimes you're going to indulge, and sometimes you're going to be tenacious. But your creativity, your connection to the earth, and your dedication make you a powerful force in this world. And if this is your rising sign, I'd love to hear what you think. What are your experiences? What resonates with you? What gifts do you see? Put them in the comments below, and or send me a note, tag me on Instagram, Rachel Lang Astrologer, or on TikTok, Rachel Lang Official. Feel free to share this, post this, and don't forget to like and subscribe too. May you find beauty, stability, and joy in your own rising sign. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time for Gemini.